Chapter 1. Autumn Sunsets, September. September came quickly. Like what just recently it was hot, the days were shining with sunshine, and rare rains were certainly followed by good weather. And now the leaves are turning yellow. The sky became heavier. Still warm, but it's already cool, and by at night you have to wrap yourself in blanket. Sakura sighed. Since Sasuke left the village has already passed 6 months. Or even more. When she stopped counting days? With precise movements, the girl removed the treated scalpels and sealed them V-scroll. You can start preparing for next operation. Or work with medical students. Or you can go to guests to Ino. After the end of the war, Yamanaka became seriously involved in the flower shop, preferring it to various missions. The example was echoed by Tenten, who was saving money to open a weapons store. The brave Kunoichi seemed to want to be a little simple girls, to leave mortal battles for back. Sakura sighed, put away the scroll and went to get ready for operations. She doesn't I could afford to be someone else. Her patients and students were waiting and may have been waiting for Sasuke. A no ordinary girl for him fit perfectly. A small meeting was taking place in Fifth's office. Konoha sought to conclude peace treaties with most countries, so all free jounin were in diplomatic missions. Tsunade was about to leave positions at well-deserved rest, so I tried to achieve peace of mind on all fronts. Otherwise it's not will be ashamed and pulled out of vacations to resolve conflicts. No sake and they are not enough. This is a small mountainous country, Shikamaru reported. The people living there are hardworking and honest. Even too honest, for breaking one's word can easily result in a death sentence. The Master of Shadows grimaced, already imagining all the difficulties and pitfalls. Since they are so correct, then, accordingly, militants are not v-measure. Kakashi nodded, looking at the map. Way to go. There was a long way to go and difficult because of the mountain road. About probable problems on where he is I also had time to think. If we not we will conclude a peace treaty with their head, scratched gloomily the back of the head, the young strategist of the village, that 3 more countries connected to them centuries-old agreements, they will refuse us. This, you understand, is either to what's not good will lead. No one answered. Everyone knew perfectly well that the refusal peace treaty will entail posed doubts from other countries. And a sharp decline in Konoha's authority international level. The future 6th frowned slightly. Why would not send to this Naruto mission? As I know that the land of rising peaks greatly values the opinion of recognized heroes. And really likes to check visitors on restraint, Tsunade muttered. There was no time for such a check passed. How many days do you think they will declare war on us? Kakashi sighed and leaned over the map again, stocking up on patience' inevitable future. To that same, he busy in Western countries, there are no problems there less, and among those available in Konoha has only heroes left you. The woman flashed her eyes. That's go, she continued more calmly, she, as the future ruler of Leaf. At the 3rd and the 4th problem with not them arose. The Hokage sullenly bit her nail thumb. True, during the Second World War, martial law was introduced 3 times because of them. Already not know what they're not shared with Tobirama. 5 exhaled in annoyance. And immediately after the death of the 3rd, they broke the agreement, squinted she. Why I have a feeling that these louts just don't take women seriously. Shikamaru as Kakashi kept silent delicately, afraid of running into outbursts of anger. The second one, it seems like, not a woman was, muttered inaudibly at aside the young genius. So take the breath away, decided 5th, not favorably after hearing the guy's comment, and looking pretty at Sour Man, and take it from myself, Sakura. Sakura? The jounin was surprised. She's a smart girl, she'll find something to do while you will solve the main issues. Tsunade narrowed her eyes slightly. She definitely had some plans for introduction of a freedom-loving lifestyle in the country of patriarchal Highlanders. Kakashi chuckled to himself. The main thing is that the direct honesty of the mountaineers is not ran into with the girl's straight fist. Sakura was extremely surprised by the unexpected mission, but with I happily agreed. Her life after Sasuke left turned into an endless series of waiting and suspense. When will the Uchiha return? What kind of his plans? What he going to do in respect her? Is there anything going on? The girl moved further and further away from friends, going to work with Ed, although she considered herself happy, and I was ready to prove this to anyone who doubted it. Therefore, on mission with former classmate and sensei went with obvious pleasure. Not for a long time was chosen for the walls of Konoha, and I was looking forward to a pleasant trip. And only to the first night the girl realized that she was the only one. The entire team was unprepared for hike. While getting ready, she mechanically grabbed a thin summer blanket that could protect against cool autumn nights. Sakura tossed and turned in his place, trying to move closer to burning fire or turn to him, others frozen sideways. She was angry at cold wind on his forgetfulness, unexpected mission, and Sasuke. If would he returned on time, then her would not anywhere sent. Take it. Kakashi, standing on duty, suddenly handed her his blanket. I can't sleep anymore. I will. But you're freezing. The girl was embarrassed and muttered, thank you. September, treacherous month, the man smiled. The day is warm, like summer, and the nights are already winter like cold. Sakura smiled gratefully and wrapped up. The sensei's blanket was warm, heated by his body, so the girl quickly stopped shaking and fell asleep. The country of the rising peaks was in a remote place, so the people lived there quite calmly. They rarely had to worry about their lives due to attacks from neighbors. For this or because patriarchy flourished, their newfangled trends penetrated with difficulty familiar foundations, quickly eroding under the pressure of tradition. Sakura with pity and looked at him indignantly sides, noticing female figures. All the residents they met looked exclusively at their feet and not decided to talk to strangers. To the girl it seemed very wild and caused a storm of indignation. The ruler turned out to be a gaunt old man with tenacious gaze of faded eyes and thin hands with long fingers covered with various strange tattoos. He dressed in everything as black, only on there was a bandage on the head with bright golden sun pattern. The Konoha ambassadors were escorted to a special meeting house where they sat for floor around the low table. Kakashi is slightly ahead, Sakura and Shikamaru for his back. At first, the discussion of the treaty went smoothly. Izanagi-san agreed with everyone and nodded with smile, but when it came to signing, politely refused, not stopping smiling. Kakashi started the discussion from the very beginning, trying to understand what was not the ruler likes it. He again nodded complacently at all the suggestions, but invariably refused agreements. I had to analyze each point literally letters, but even that's not helped. The old man nodded, but the result did not change. Shikamaru at first tried to insert his reasonable arguments, but soon realized that his opinion was of rather little importance as long as there was an immediate captain of their teams. Izanagi intended to communicate only with Kakashi, but here to sign an agreement with him he not wanted. Or I wanted to, but kind of weird. Once you are satisfied with everything agreement, then not I arrange myself? Kakashi finally realized. From respect for how to you war hero, the old man bowed his head side, as if mocking the Konoha ambassadors. I will explain the reason for the refusal. And then there was silence in the room. Izanagi kept looking at Kakashi's eyes, clearly testing his patience. Sakura bit her lip and clasped her hands in fists thrown at the former sensei's sympathetic look. In his place she would exploded long ago. Even Shikamaru quietly gritted his teeth, wanting to break the neck of the decrepit mountaineer. The girl herself has already managed to wish the harmful ruler to die suddenly from any diagnosis that was possible would have been at such a respectable age. Sakura told him offhand less than 10 compatible with life, the amount of bile that poured out from old man, just could pass without a trace for health. Then the kunoichi invariably became ashamed of evil wishes to grandfather, and she began to mentally save the patient with her techniques. Thanks to Sakura's extensive medical experience, and lack of Izanagi's patience in the girl's imagination, he was dying and I'd been resurrected 30 times already. And was going to continue in this spirit for a long time after all. The end of negotiations and not in the near future was foreseen. By your laws you can only enter into contracts with revered people, right? Kakashi took the floor again, and not waiting for clarification. Right, with the old man nodded with a nasty smile. A man is honored slowly. With endless patience the future Hokage began to list, distinguished himself in battles, a recognized hero? Right, the ruler continued to nod. One who has a certain amount of power, Kakashi continued, who makes decisions and is responsible? The old man's cunning eyes became even more cunning. Right, insinuatingly confirmed he. I fit that definition, right? With the man asked pressingly. So easily agreed that one, but Hiro added, but not at all. What exactly do you not want? Like? Kakashi sighed heavily, trying to get rid of unpleasant feeling. I'm used to proving my status with deeds, but not in loud words. Appointment to position of the 6th Hokage, a matter of a couple of months. All this is true. Izanagi raised his palms up. It's not a matter of your position. You are, of course, a hero. And a person who makes serious decisions. Faded eyes ran over figures of Jonin's companions. But you not married. What? The shinobi exclaimed in shock, expecting any other reason. What kind of trust can there be in person, not answering either behind whose life? Kakashi drawled, rubbing his forehead. Now the reason for the previous failures has become clear, but solving the unexpected problem seemed impossible. I felt Sakura's questioning glances behind me and Shikamaru. The guys were so surprised that they even forgot to be indignant. I will be responsible for the life of an entire village, the man said carefully, peering into expression on the old man's face. He shook his head with a mysterious half-smile. Isn't this fact more important than responsibility just for one life? Is one life less important than several? Izanagi asked slyly, causing the future 6th to grind his teeth with annoyance. He had been involved in politics for too long, and knew how to play with words. Fine, Kakashi agreed gloomily after some silence, and then he clarified, if the next time a married ambassador comes, then with him you sign a contract? No, the old man smiled good-naturedly. Why in this once? The man exhaled heavily and added with pressure, we will send one of heroes. Sakura quietly snorted behind her, thinking that it seemed that Naruto would have to learn patience after all, and I still need to get married urgently. Although would Hinata will be happy. In 3 days, the month of rest from affairs, Izanagi explained, this is our sacred holiday. You can't do fateful things in this month. Sakura heard Shikamaru curse quietly. They are not will be in time for 3 days to send a replacement from Konoha. The peace treaty will fail, 3 more countries will leave composition of the alliance, serious problems will begin again. But I can help you, the harmful old man suddenly leaned forward quite seriously. How? Looked gloomily at Kakashi told him, sensing a catch. Get married, Izanagi smiled. Kakashi exhaled slowly again. I can call the childbearing daughters of my people, continued the old man. These are obedient and faithful girls. With these words, the ruler stared with a heavy gaze at Sakura. And any will gladly agree to become the basis of the union of our countries. Drawled the confused Jounin, wondering how it would be more polite to refuse, although, judging by satisfied expression on the old man's face, excuses not on this issue accepted. Then whether it was really important to him, then whether there are many girls in the village, from whom they dream of getting rid of as quickly as possible. Sakura for the man's back fidgeted indignantly. Yes, and the heir of the Nara clan hissed something inaudibly through his teeth there. About to blurt out something wrong to place. We can rethink? Kakashi asked the old man directly. Certainly, Izanagi nodded kindly. Why you have 3 whole days left month of rest from business. Jonin nodded and came out with upset Sakura and Shikamaru. For ambassadors from Konoha allocated a small, neat house with apple orchard. Inside there was only one common room, in which the shinobi settled down. They sat in silence for some time. Shikamaru coughed, glancing sideways at motionless Kakashi. I, of course, understand that this is ridiculous. But, are you really ready to get married? The man frowned sternly, but remained silent. I think in this country is full of girls who want to run away, Sakura said sarcastically, even in such an original way. This is not normal, do you understand? Interrupted her rather abruptly former sensei. The girl lowered her head dejectedly. Everyone was silent, afraid to push their captain to any decision, because it was not just a clause in the contract, but the fate of 2 people. If I'm a bride, Sakura suddenly asked nervously, having considered different options for future events in your mind. What? Stared in shock at Kunoichi her satellites. Well, I the only girl in our company, she said uncertainly, no believing what it offers this. We can pretend. Don't pretend it will work out. Kakashi shook his head. Izanagi not stupid, will require a full ceremony. That means, the marriage will be real. Sakura swallowed. And the room fell silent. The shinobi feverishly tried to figure out a way out of stupid situation. Even if the marriage is real, the girl began quietly, afraid to look into eyes to comrades, we can still pretend. She exhaled and she lifted her chin up more confidently. Let's go back to Konoha and here, or let's get divorced. As if nothing not happened. Kakashi and Shikamaru. This option was with the most acceptable. Is it true? The Master of Shadows began slowly. Fake marriage, in fact, it will be a deception. A force to marry, this is true? Is not it deception? Sakura exclaimed furiously, her eyes flashing angrily. Kakashi touched her softly shoulder. The girl exhaled irritably, but stopped being indignant. And the room fell into oppressive silence again. Everyone tried to find another way out, but understood perfectly well that then we'll marry you tomorrow morning, the man decided, turning away. Sakura shuddered and stared at floor. It's one thing to boldly propose a crazy idea, but completely different on actually decide on such step. After all, the marriage will really be real. Us? Nara suddenly exclaimed in an abnormally high voice. You are confident that Izanagi will agree to enter into an agreement with me, even if married? You're more suitable for Sakura than I. Kakashi rubbed his forehead with his finger. He tried not to look at Frozen Girl. The wedding will be negotiable, so it doesn't matter who suits who best. The pale strategist clenched his fists. And Izanagi does not need this marriage like the fact of marriage itself, and as an increase in the status of the negotiator. The man drawled displeasedly, frowning. Shikamaru is right. Sakura sighed quietly. And then I force myself to look at eyes to the former sensei. We not should give even the slightest loophole for refusal, since let's go to such step. Kakashi was silent for a long time, peering at the determined face of a former student. Fine, he said sharply and got up. I'll go tell you about our decision to the ruler. With these words the jonin left rooms, with barely restraining himself from slam the door. Not think that because of you I refuse, turned to girl Shikamaru. Just, Temari, Sakura smiled weakly. She understood. Out their window house was visible as Kakashi spoke quietly to something ruler of the Highlanders. The old man smiled and nodded. Apparently they have finally come to consent. The girl's heart went into heels. What has she done? What have they done? It was simply impossible to sleep that night. Sakura was nervous and I constantly imagined how there will be all of them. In front of her flew through the mind's eye pictures of shameful exposure, then an image appearing from nowhere on Sasuke's ritual. The girl was completely exhausted, constantly tossing and turning near sleeping place. Shikamaru was hovering restlessly nearby. He was overcome by similar thoughts and fears, excluding the unscheduled return of the Uchiha. Kakashi spent the quietest night, not even stirred under his blanket, but really he's not. I was absolutely asleep. In the morning I took Sakura to his home, the ruler's wife Akane, a venerable, silent woman with straight back. She helped the bride prepare for ritual. She brought a piercing white dress with traditional Tsunokakushi hood. When finished with the clothes, Sakura looked at himself mirror and bit her lips. She was getting married. Without parental blessing, without girlfriends, without a holiday, without everything that makes a wedding a dream. And even talk about her fears there was no with by whom. Akane looked at him several times, looked at his ward for a long time, as if thinking about what to say or advise, but each time she continued to remain silent. Yes, and not understood would mountain woman suffering freedom-loving Kunoichi. Shikamaru was ashamed to complain, but Sensei and I had enough doubts. Finally they came out into the open sky. The weather seemed to be deliberately trying to become bright and warm like summer. Great luck getting married in such a day. On a wide platform lined with wooden blocks, the bride was already waiting, Kakashi, dressed in dark kimono with white-edged, disheveled shikamaru and smiling Izanagi with cold prickly eyes. Akane led the girl to my husband and quietly disappeared from mind. Kakashi extended his hand. Sakura squeezed his hand hesitantly. He took off his gloves before the ceremony, and now open warm skin warmed her frozen from excitement fingers. Sakura looked up and smiled faintly at her. Suddenly it became a little easier. Still, she completely trusted the former sensei, and pull off a trick with a fake wedding without fear could only be with him. It's good that Shikamaru refused. With Shiznara Wanada was able to on a moment to relax in time for this farce. Kakashi suddenly moved a little closer and started my part of the game. Agree whether you, Hareno Sakura, become my support, be near and be trouble, and be good luck, be faithful to me and give support? Agree, the girl exhaled almost silently, and then she picked up her role. Agree whether you, Hatake Kakashi, become my protection, be near and be grief, and be joy, not betray me and lead by yourself? Agree, the man answered, and Sakura held her breath. On moment to her it seemed that he answered completely seriously. Izanagi nodded at sworn vows and handed the couple a scroll, which required a signature. The lines fell on paper accompanied by a deafening heartbeat. Ears. In place of the displayed names, the connection seal flashed, confirming the voluntary consent of those entering into marriage, and disappeared. And now take off the mask and kiss the bride, Izanagi calmly demanded, putting the scroll away. Kakashi turned to Sakura and raised his hand, picking up the fabric. Nose girl was stared at him with undisguised curiosity, him, intending to accurately examine the sensei's face this time. In all the details. About. Exhaled she when the mask completely slid down. Kakashi grinned, and the girl is not. I just heard this. But and I saw how they stretched out in sad smile corners of it lips lip. It only now dawned on Sakura what was about to happen. Kiss the bride. Kakashi moved closer and bent down. Eyes the cherry blossoms expanded, revealing the girl's surging panic. After all, just touching each other will clearly not be enough. Izanagi peered at the couple with an attentive gaze, recording every movement. He as if he was waiting for the bride to lose her temper, refuse, or show in some other way that she was just playing. Sakura trembled, barely able to resist recoil. Kakashi, seeing the girl's fear, stopped and looked at her eyes. A calm look gave confidence. Sakura took a breath and she reached forward herself, not yet changed her mind, touching the man's lips. He caught her movement, and everything became unexpectedly easy, and it's clear. Just let him lead, obey and relax, and feel how your heart speeds up just out of excitement. Kakashi pulled away and they looked at each other's eyes. Now that it's no longer there was an opportunity to hide behind images and masks, they were completely open and defenseless in front of each other, but for some reason they only felt support. Connection. Congratulations, from now on you husband and wife, Izanagi solemnly proclaimed. Immediately after the ceremony, the Konoha ambassadors went to House of Negotiations, although the ruler clearly looked annoyed by this turn of events. You want to sign the contract today? Izanagi feigned surprise when dodging direct responsibilities became impossible. Yes, as soon as possible, looked sternly at him Kakashi. We can deal with business tomorrow, the old man squinted mockingly. Today at your family's holiday. This holiday was organized today to your requirement, the Jounin reminded him restrainedly. You can spend your wedding night here in our sacred home, the ruler of the mountaineers shrugged, with the first rays of sun to conclude an agreement. Sakura shuddered. Kakashi moved forward barely noticeably, as if blocking her from harmful old man. No, the man snapped, we do the rest, we'll spend it at home, in Konoha. Izanagi looked at him with a searching look, but apparently realized that putting more pressure on Shinobi makes no sense, so he reluctantly nodded and he waved his hand, inviting him to sit near the low table. And again a long discussion of each point of the agreement began. True, in this time Izanagi is not smiled and was extremely serious and concentrated. And in the end, the ruler put the long-awaited signature. Kakashi looked through the hard-won scroll for the last time, and then he handed it to Shikamaru. The Shadow Master carefully put it away bag. You can finally breathe easy. How much effort did they put into this paper? How many nerves were spent just for a couple of squiggles? The last thing left, Izanagi said calmly, causing the shinobi to tense up sharply. I and our country with have deep respect for this word. And to exclude the possibility of unworthy lies, let us clasp our hands over our clan's seal. Kakashi frowned in disbelief, but no reason to refuse found. The old man spread a new scroll in front of him and extended his thin withered brush. The man decidedly shook eye in that, or for a second a small tattoo flashed on his wrist. Seal! On Izanagi's hand, covered with drawings, appeared exactly like this or symbol. What this? Kakashi asked sharply, withdrawing his hand and looking at the mark. This is a guarantee, the old man calmly explained. Guarantee of what? The Jounin clarified gloomily. What do you will comply with the terms of the agreement, and also his other promises. Here the ruler glanced at Sakura, as well as we. This is a binding seal, from now on we will know if someone breaks the oath. Kakashi was silent for a long time, but this seal is not contradicted the terms of the peace treaty. And after all he decided to deal with this problem in Konoha. Maybe everything is not as scary as he thinks. The way back was full of doubts. With on the one hand they signed a peace treaty, completed the task, returned with victory, but here with the other side, on my soul was somehow sad. And why, to be honest, it's scary. Sakura secretly looked at Sensei's back. Like what nothing has changed, everything remains the same, because marriage them negotiable, but all well. Something subtly became different. Husband and wife. Kakashi seemed to feel the gaze and turned around. Sakura hastily stared at her feet. She felt extremely uncomfortable own thoughts. Really what I thought about her. At night she already slept as usual under the sensei's blanket. He continued to be on duty half the night, hiding in tree branches. Sakura, lying by fire, examined his figure and thoughtfully recalled the wedding ceremony. Become my protection. He's in any way it was hers protection. Always. And the presence of marriage is not a fact changed, Sakura chuckled. She's on the role of support. Was poorly suited, although I managed to imagine myself waiting for Kakashi's return on cold evenings. In principle, being his wife is not at all difficult, quite the opposite. The girl closed her eyes tightly, trying to get rid of these strange thoughts. After all, she was only going to think like that about Sasuke. And really it was completely wrong. Remember them with trepidation, kiss with sensei. With trepidation, with warmth, and with desire to repeat. No, no, no! She will repeat this only with Sasuke. And their kiss with Uchiha will not be at all worse, but even better. Much better. Sakura opened her eyes and realized that Kakashi had been thoughtfully for a long time looked at her. Noticing the student's gaze, he smiled at her with just your eyes and turned away. Sakura sighed and wrapped herself tighter in blanket. They'll be back soon, Konoha, and everything will end. Everything will fall into their places. You done what? Five rolled her eyes at unexpected news. She even forgot to lose her temper when using her superhuman strength, she just froze. The ashamed squad looked at each other, and repeated the whole story from the very beginning. Show seal, the Hokage demanded. She moved next to her excited assistant. Kakashi silently extended his hand. The women studied the pattern for a long time. There are two news inside, bad and a bit better. Sakura swallowed. She was no longer. I was expecting nothing good for myself. And judging by her tense figure, sensei, he same. And which? Kakashi clarified gloomily, glancing slightly at girl. This seal truly binds you to ruler of the country of the rising peaks. And he will know if you not keep your word here. The Hokage's assistant frowned and added, if you remember what the punishment is them breaking an oath, then most likely for refusal death awaits you after marriage. A tense silence hung in the office. Sakura shrank all over, no be able to decide what is worse, becoming the real wife of her sensei or being the cause of his death. In fact, this seal does not convey all your actions, Shizen continued thoughtfully. Otherwise would her used in military purposes absolutely all. How does it work? Tsunade asked sharply, realizing that the Jounin should not ask anything gets ready, and in general, it seems that he has already made a decision. The decision that she not at all I liked it. By to a certain mental request, she transmits the approximate environment of the person bound by the seal, Shizen explained guiltily. This means that you can get a divorce immediately, and you will really have to live like a family. These words sounded like a sentence. Sakura staggered. It's clear, Kakashi said quietly, not looking at her. He commanded them squad and was going to take full responsibility for what happened. Only him won. What do you understand? Tsunade suddenly exploded, slamming her palm on table. He staggered but resisted. You can break your word. Otherwise a new war will begin. An open conflict is much worse than an unsigned peace treaty. We have no other options. The man snapped. I agree. Sakura exclaimed in a broken voice, not raising their heads. I want neither war or your death. I agree. Tears rolled down the girl's cheeks, but she was firm in your decision. Kakashi K turned around, and at the sight of the sobs of his former student, he became even more gloomy. Live like a family not means the mandatory fulfillment of marital duty, because families are different. Shizen hastily interjected. And you not me listen to the end. The seal is quite strong, but only one works here. Everyone stared at assistant to the Hokage. Means, Tsunade began slowly, you only need to tolerate each other's company for a few months. And Hiro made a decision, divorce in next September. When Kakashi tried to object, Fifth gave an angry look, indicating that the conversation was over. They made a mistake and now 12 months will be in pay her. In principle, no too much price for peace and life. Sakura looked at floating in clouds in the evening sky. She simply ran away from the fifth office, but not tried to hide via his old apartment, nor via at-home parents, just climbed on roof and settled down on the nearest bench. She looked motionlessly at endless movement in above and not even turned around when someone's cautious steps sounded nearby. The upset master of shadows sat down on the bench, also raising his head up. I'm really sorry, Shikamaru said quietly, not taking his eyes off darkening sky. Yeah, the girl nodded calmly. They sat in silence for a few minutes. Still me glad I didn't ended up on Kakashi-sensei's place with the guy admitted with a sigh. And from that I'm even more sorry, yeah, Sakura repeated. Then I looked at friend. I hope you with Temari will be fine. A painful shadow passed over Shikamaru's face. Yeah, grinned he, it seems that fate itself speaks to me, stop waiting, do something already. And he fell silent again. Them with Sister Kazekage everything was extremely unclear. To begin with, it was not clear how Temari herself applies to him. Okay, I'll go to your, Sakura hesitated, no quite sure how or call him to my husband, still decided she, and then she became sad and added bitterly, he seems to have regrets too. Shikamaru looked at it strange. He disappointed, the guy clarified carefully. Because I had to drag you into this. Because you agreed to everything is against your will. Upset, but not regrets. Sakura raised her eyebrows in surprise, and then she chuckled, feeling like for some reason my heart felt a little lighter. The girl stood up and was already about to jump from roofs, but stopped. Shikamaru sighed quietly. She turned around. I understand that this is impossible to keep in secret, but I not to anyone I'll say, he promised understandingly that. Thank you, the girl smiled and went home to sensei. Stop running in doubt. It's time for them meet alone, and decide what to do next. The door opened as soon as she knocked. Come in, Sakura, the man moved, letting her through inside. The girl looked around. After all, she'll have to live here for the next year, and I realized that sensei was trying to prepare his home a little for her when I arrived. There were some boxes with hastily folded things, a couple of flowers in pots, stack of fresh bed linen. It was necessary though would take a toothbrush. Sakura shook her head sadly. A not suffer for roof from own stupidity. Yes, not here all in at its best. Kakashi understood the upset expression on his face in his own way. Student's face, but I have a room for you released. The girl looked inside and I was pleased with what I saw. In the small room had enough space for a bed, a table, and even a closet. Everything you need is meow by the man promised gloomily, not crossing the threshold of the room. Just tell me what you need. I have everything, Sakura exclaimed nervously. We just need to transport it. Fine, nodded awkwardly he, let's go, I'll show you the rest. Sakura followed sensei, almost not listening to his words, and I was wondering why not earlier visited him in guests. And in any case, all the work I'm home I will do myself, came to this is the end of Kakashi's words, from nothing about you required. Yes, nodded she's trying to remember what he has spoke before this. Listen, Sakura, Kakashi suddenly began seriously, looking at her eyes. The girl fumbled with a trembling hand for the sofa behind herself, and villages I just wasn't able to listen to him legs giving way. I want you to felt like a victim. His former student watched silently, doing nothing. Revealing your true feelings. I understand that all this is terrible for you. The man rubbed his hand neck, looking away, but I think we can just live in one apartment. No more for printing necessary. Sakura remained silent. Consider us on general mission, looked at her Kakashi. We had to share a common hotel room, so let's assume that it's just a long task, year. Fine, the girl squeezed out, trying to smile. What did you tell your parents? Suddenly stunned her Kakashi. Nothing, blurted out quickly she blushes and turning away. It was terribly scary that now the sensei would start reprimanding silence of such important and serious events, but nothing is said. Sakura glanced sideways at Jonin and I guessed that he was also extremely embarrassed to start a conversation with her relatives. What would neither there were circumstances, but they are married. For real. The night passed restlessly. Sakura knew perfectly well that Kakashi had gone to your room and what he anyway not crossed would her threshold new home without permission, but it's okay to fall asleep she doesn't happened. Unusual sounds, a strange room, a different bed forced me to wake up and with tensely expect something, until the girl calmed down and not fell asleep again. In the morning, completely exhausted, Sakura simply forced herself to get out of beds. The new marital status is not at all relieved her from responsibilities in hospital. On the contrary, if they were going to keep everything secret, then it was impossible to attract attention by being late for work. With these thoughts the girl crawled into side of the bathroom, intending though it with use cold water to get yourself out of drowsy state. Basically we with Kakashi-sensei can easily live together, no getting stuck in uncomfortable situations, she chuckled to herself, opening the door and meeting with the stunned look of a man coming out of the shower. Flying out with a squeal corridor, Sakura thought that she should ask the sensei to give instructions on his apartment. That suddenly she missed something yesterday less important than a bathroom door that won't close. Golden autumn, strewn with bright leaves, illuminated by the warm sun, took its toll on nature and to others. The air seemed to become thinner and easier. People were in a hurry to leave with streets strewn with leaves or, on the contrary, stopped, admiring the riot of colors. In the house of the future sixth, everything went into calm track. The couple knew each other's daily routine very well and no more encountered in inappropriate places. Sakura carefully transported to Kakashi's apartment, and his things. He tried my best decongest the rooms as much as possible so that she feels freer. The only difficult moment for both was spending time together. After work, both are used to doing their own thing, but constantly forgot about each other's presence, and tried to do it tensely looks like it's not anyone excites. Kakashi, feeling how the girl is straining them silence on evenings, began to carefully question her old past day about us she told with poorly concealed relief and asked questions herself, managing to find out about your sensei amazing things, which and not I guessed it before. The most shocking discovery for the girl was what her new husband celebrated his birthday. Or rather, she knew this fact since childhood. They once tried to congratulate their mentor, but he sneakily hid from your team on mission. Then Sakura thought that they sensei no wanted to celebrate in company of children, but was celebrated with friends full program. How amazed she was when she learned that Kakashi managed to escape from not everyone measure of vindictiveness, i.e. those whose memory for the date is good, leaving even might guide behind, and this can be considered almost a feat. But in this time, because of an unplanned marriage and new tenant, the man's usual order of life was disrupted. I just forgot to take the mission so as not to appear on I's residence of Konoha. So Sakura was determined to repay him for all the past and future, she suspected, bullying. Realizing that during the day the man will everyone hide, and she can do this masterfully, she began to prepare for evening. After all, he has no choice but to Konoha has nowhere to go, he's going home to spend the night should come. Having purchased groceries, the girl prepared a small birthday cake, cleaned up apartment, and put in vase of flowers. To say that Kakashi was surprised does not say nothing. Hyuna was speechless for a few moments, and only then was he able to squeeze out words of gratitude. Sakura herself was embarrassed by his reaction, and I was silent the whole dinner. Thank you, smiled warmly at her man and patted hair. This was the first manifestation of his warm attitude for them all the time cohabitation. Sakura blushed slightly and smiled joyfully at answer, feeling that another wall had collapsed between them. But how many are there still left? And what will happen if they not will it happen? From that day on, she began to cook constantly, honing her skills to quite tasty. Kakashi ate dinner at home every day, and their conversations on no more evenings had a hint of tension. They were sincerely looking forward to the opportunity to just be together, but tried not to think about this desire. Sometimes Sakura thought, but costs whether hide. They are not did something truly reprehensible. They completed the mission and completed it fine. But it was worth imagining the faces of friends or parents. It was worth thinking about Sasuke, and I felt sick. It was scary to see the contempt and cold alienation on familiar handsome face, or indignant misunderstanding faces of relatives. What would told her the last Uchiha? What's her eternal love was not that's the way it is in eternal, since she easily got married. Yes, also behind your own sensei. So they continued to be silent and hide. And it worked out great for them. No suspicions from people around, no tricky questions or jokes. Life is not at all has changed. Or has it changed? The girl chuckled, thinking that it became much more interesting and easier than before trips to the country of the rising peaks. Previously, she was just waiting for Sasuke and was completely subordinated to this expectation. All of her existence revolved around the fateful moment of the return of the former Nuke-Nin. And now, everything has become different. She still had a hard job in hospital, yes, household responsibilities still piled up, but for some incredible reason, on the contrary, they inspired confidence and desire to make everyone happy day. Sakura smiled thoughtfully, stirring tea, and looked at girlfriend, with who decided to have lunch at cafe. Ino suddenly narrowed her eyes slyly and leaned closer. Why do you? It's been over 3 weeks now. Are you spending the night at home? She sweetly clarified with a devious smile that made Sakura choke. Chapter 2. Autumn Sunsets, October. October loomed over Konoha in the appearance of leaf fall, the last warm days and gloomy rains. Autumn appeared in all its glory, and no one anymore would not confuse her with end of summer. Sakura thought that it must be very beautiful right now, forest when no trees, none left one green leaf. She actually thought about many useless things, thoughts in her usually the quick-witted mind flew by, but absolutely empty. Because come up with an answer to Ino's tricky question helped. Is it really more than 3 weeks? With what did you take it? Sakura grinned pointedly, feeling that she was overplaying her hand. Indignation in voice. Why should I spend the night somewhere? Also, if my apartment isn't all right? That's I think about this, squinted Ino. Came to you and guests no one was. I'm sitting late at night hospital, she shrugged nervously. Girlfriend. 4 days in a row, Yamanaka finished with a grin. There are many reports, said the student of the 5th. I got worried no matter how what not, the blonde used to continue, and even asked Sai to attach it to one of your doors, his ink beacons. I was hoping to stop by when you will appear. There was a significant silence at the table. Do you know when he did it work? Looked insinuatingly at girlfriend Ino. Toy not there was a need to answer. She and so I knew the answer. Never. The girl frowned slightly, throwing back long blonde hair on the back. You not appeared at home for more than 20 days. It's easy to explain, Sakura gathered sadly. Ino raised her eyebrows mockingly, showing that she was listening attentively. I am spending the night in hospital. A girl was found. Justin, there's been a lot of work these last few days. That's it, I'm staying there so as not to spend time on road and cooking. 20 days. She snorted indignantly. Girlfriend. Lost track of time, Sakura shrugged. And with by whom, right? The blonde moved a little closer. Why immediately with by whom? The almost uncovered newlywed sword. 1. I in separate room. And anyway, what difference does it make where I am? Spending my nights? I was just wondering who could outdo Sasuke's bright image. Since you with there are no hours for this unknown watching, pursed her lips Ino. I came up with all sorts of things, Haruno said dismissively, pursing her lips. Well, yes, I figured it out, Yamanaka chuckled skeptically. Sakura got a feeling in the pit of her stomach from waiting for another trick with her sides. Ino is definitely her either no drops, I believed it. The friends finished their lunch, smiling tensely at each other. By the way, Naruto was looking for you, she said sarcastically at the end. Ino, also lost. At first I thought it was you disappear. Not talk nonsense, pork! Sakura snapped, getting really angry. Ino just waved it off, not at all scared. The first thing after talking with friends, Sakura rushed home. To Kakashi. Sensei. She flew into apartment. Ino about guesses something. She found a man packing a hiking backpack in bedroom exactly. Him or sent to another diplomatic mission. What should we do? How to keep everything in secret? What the girl exclaimed in despair, frozen on the threshold of his room. Kakashi placed the last shuriken in scabbard and straightened up. He was completely ready for mission, but what to answer to a former student, no knew. Hide them. The situation seemed the most reasonable way out situation. This idea was actively supported and understood, but for some reason, Sakura's sad question made him take a deep breath and turn thoughtfully her side. It's been a month since you live with myself. It is obvious. And what did you answer? What do you have? I have difficult shifts hospital. And that I've been spending the night for the last few days there. I told my parents that or the most. On at this, Sakura lowered her gaze. Kakashi looked at her the top of the head. Try not to tell anyone yet, explain. Or, on the contrary, arrange gatherings at yourself at home to remove suspicions. I'm not, it will be quite long, you can live normally. Like before. I'll be back with missions, and let's talk. Walking towards doors, Kakashi patted her as usual by hair. How in those moments when she cried, or was very worried. For example, because of Sasuke's departure. But this time he not began to smile encouragingly. Sakura has grown up. Naruto sat on bench in empty alley, turning in a fallen maple leaf wrapped around the prosthetic fingers. Autumn, the best time for the hidden leaf. There's almost no one around, it was, and the young war hero was enjoying his hard-earned day off. He was given so many missions that he involuntarily recalled the old days when I had to beg old man. Third's task is more difficult. It's good to be a child. Naruto smiled to himself. At the other end of the alley, someone's silhouette appeared. The Jinchuriki tensed. He had plans for I didn't want to tonight see no one other than former teammates, but soon identified by chakra of the approaching shinobi. Sigh. He waved cheerfully to a friend. The former ANBU nodded with smile. Never I thought I'd say this, but I am very glad to see you. Naruto exclaimed, about to talk about future team meeting, about their achievements and travel. Never thought, this is a mission? The artist asked thoughtfully. And often you not glad? Now it's somehow not very, the guy muttered. I am always glad to see you, Cypress smile. Yes, understood I, Databeo. With Uzumaki waved his hand in annoyance. You kind of twitchy, the artist looked thoughtfully at his friend. There has been no tension for a long time. Reset? You then now? Stared suspiciously at him the son of the fourth. I about rest. Sai looked at him with honest, impenetrable eyes. Rest. Naruto remembered. Today we are going to Ichiraku, let's relax together, eat ramen. Usually a girl is needed for physical relaxation, the former ANBU said casually. The Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails fell silent. It's best to take a break from training, and complex missions are helped by courting opposite sex, explained Sai. That's what they say in books. Naruto made a smart face. That I already thought. What? The artist asked sweetly. Doesn't matter, his friend muttered gloomily. About ramen. So do girls never see you was? It dawned on me, Saya. Was. Naruto blurted out, wondering what the Sakura will do it to him if he will call her V as an example. And when you within her last time you did this? Asked the pale guy with interest. This? The usually noisy and determined Uzumaki. Courtship, explained in surprise Sai. Kisses, for example. Naruto drawled, ruffling his hair with his artificial hand. The back of the head. Hugs by victory probably shouldn't be taken into account. Will there be? No longer remember? The former ANBU asked sympathetically. That's why you're nervous. Tension has accumulated. And the longer you wait, the more it will be. Just go to Ichiraku. The future Hokage grabbed his friend and pulled him by yourself, no longer letting that say in words. Sakura will be there, and she girl, so everything is in okay. Before meeting with Team Sakura entered his old apartment, vengefully crushing the inked beacon on doors. It was dusty and somehow empty. When she moved away from parents, then I meticulously chose this housing, slowly changing it to suit myself, but now it's not evoked feelings of joy and desire to quickly bring everything here to order. I walked around the rooms with regret, collected a few things in bag, and I made a vow to myself to clean up here immediately after meeting with Naruto. On the way to ramen, Sakura noticed the wrinkled next door to Hinata's house. The girl clearly doubted whether to approach, whether to sitting behind stand Naruto or pass by. Hyuga had a hard time recent months. Not only has Naruto been constantly disappearing missions, being in Konoha for a few days month, and less often, but also was constantly surrounded by fans. And on Hinata himself paid little attention. Sakura sighed. To her there was we know firsthand how hard it is to wait, not knowing what's ahead. The girl decisively approached confused friend. Just passing by, blushing, Hinata babbled, realizing that she revealed. That's fine, Sakura smiled, that means you'll go to us on team meeting. But because you team, the Hyuga heiress tried to resist. Nothing, not Sakura noticed resistance, no one is against will. To that same, you not the only one not from our team, I noticed without much enthusiasm. She glanced at reserved table. Indeed, in addition to Naruto and Saya, sitting Ino, looking slyly at a friend who came to look for evidence of her theories. Naruto needs a girl to relax, suddenly declared Sai, when everyone was seated. Ino choked, Hinata blushed toe-to-toe heads, and Sakura ground her teeth angrily, knowing who to hit first of all. Shocked Naruto was slack-jawed or a completely calm artist, absolutely not understanding, or just perfectly understands, all the tactlessness of his words. So is anyone from Will You Help Him? Sai looked around at his quiet friends. Although it with Kiss, we have problems with your peace treaty, Tsunade stated, casting a fleeting glance at who came in. Shikamura politely clarified, not particularly straining from news. There were problems. One of I'd been hiding from them for a month now, friends and relatives on work in hospital. Highlanders are not fulfilled their obligations, the woman suddenly explained, not looking up from viewing some reports yourself on table. Hear how? The guy was surprised. It was strange considering them pathological honesty. The road through the mountains, which they undertook to build in order to establish a trade route to Suna, did not under construction, looked at his eyes are Tsunade. A times with the contract was screwed up, you then you and take the rap. Here Senju grinned insidiously, to you, since I am Sakura nowhere else I'll let you go, and Kakashi is now on missions. How or problematic? The Master of Shadows groaned habitually, realizing the gravity of the task, because in this time the Highlanders will have a blast him according to full program. No patience, for they are not enough, nothing, the Hokage cut him off harshly, you like solving puzzles, so get busy. What do you have there? Not there converges and not is being built. Maybe we can wait for Kakashi-san to return. With the guy asked hopefully. Maybe you will you switch places with him? Fifth asked insinuatingly. He will go to resolve problems with road construction, and you will struggle to sign peace treaties with rowdy neighbors? Nara thought, wondering what would be more difficult, to prove his authority to the stubborn mountaineers or to try to talk down the rulers of less conservative countries. Reikage and the Tsuchikage will welcome Konoha's help, what Tsunade sentenced him with a sweet smile. I agree to road construction, Shikamaru quickly decided. So that he returns in a week, the Hokage ordered sternly, and preferably, without a wife. The guy at exit from office stumbled, changing his mind again about the problematic nature of the task, but asked in company to rulers of the cloud, and no stone took a chance. Lightning of discontent flashed menacingly in Fifth's eyes. Meeting with friends, interesting. If what on morning at Sakura is not a lesson was scheduled with medical students, then she definitely stayed would be longer companies. Laughing at Sai and Naruto, after talking with friends, the girl suddenly realized that it had not been like this for a long time. Relaxed. Sakura clicked the lock, raised her head, and found myself in hallway of Kakashi's apartment. Shio was about to go home, because sensei was not. It will be a few weeks. Did you really think so much that you automatically came here? The girl chuckled, wanted to go out and go to myself, but changed my mind. Well, only a month has passed, but she is already used to living here. And it turns out, she considered this apartment her home. Sakura walked into your room and fell on it with pleasure. Bed. Everything was different here, no such as in her own apartment. Strange young girl's taste in furniture, slightly incorrect furnishings, curtains of the wrong color. But on the nightstand there was the usual photograph of the 7th team, and there were familiar things in the drawers, and the atmosphere all around reigned cozy. Sakura smiled. Living here was not at all as difficult as she imagined. And now she, like an exemplary wife, will wait for her husband to return with missions. Hatake Sakura. The girl smiled wryly, taking Han's photograph of them teams. She looked at Sasuke's face so many times that she remembered it before the smallest details, every line, every highlight. I only now bothered to study the sensei's face hidden by the mask. And looking at the smile barely visible under the fabric, Sakura remembered his open face. After all, she was the only one who saw him like this. Yes, very closed, not even without a mask, approaching to myself, but at the same time managing to give warmth and care. Her husband. She always believed that she would bear the surname Uchiha. Following familiar mountaineer country of the rising peaks, Shikamaru rightly feared that it would be extremely difficult to fulfill the Hokage's last demand. They will become weather with him, unmarried and not active at all. Would not involved communicate on equal? But the guide behaved quite calmly, not smiled, no quipped, which gave me hope for successful resolution of the conflict. Isanaji looked the same as past them. I met you a month ago, but this time he was not one. Neno whispered something quietly in front of the door in meeting house. Seeing the guests, they turned around and mysteriously fell silent, making the guy nervous. Shikamaru won't last long could understand that or hid behind with the strained smiles of the mountaineers, until went inside. Only after opening the door did the guy realize that he was in trouble. Highlanders on not really was. There was Temari. The Konoha strategist scratched his hand thoughtfully. The back of my head, looking at the furious eyes of the Kazekage's sister. The indignation was perfectly understandable, because the inhabitants of the country of the rising peaks did not took her seriously, words most likely referring to with her, as with fragile, but a completely useless vase. A kunoichi cannot tolerate such an attitude which only made it worse position, because to take guests out of itself was considered a common form of entertainment here. And even if Shikamaru intervenes now and will correct the situation with his male authority, then next time everything will start again. To that or Temari doesn't seem to be at all understood by for what reason did the mountaineers bring her before white heat. So what should I do? Shikamaru chuckled. Was that he has one idea. At the Ninja Academy with recently introduced additional classes for children who later they plan to become doctors. Tsunade ordered that those who wish to be divided into groups that will supervise those who have distinguished themselves in kunoichi battles. Ino and Sakura were enlisted first, and a whole crowd of students rushed to distribute themselves to him. Looking at the delighted faces of the future Irenans, Sakura grinned. They were so eager to get to in her group. And behind such a desire of theirs extremely difficult training awaits. My name is Ha, the girl stammered, almost calling the sensei's last name. Here's to what do nightly reflections lead to. Haruno Sakura recovered quickly. She's trying not to blush. I will lead classes for you medicine. Fortunately, no one had a slight hitch. Noticed that even Ino didn't begin to find fault. We need to stop thinking about your husband. Temari was stared at him with suspicion. Happy face of a guy who stopped by in her house provided by the mountaineers. At first she didn't. I wanted to let him in, but Shikamaru said he could help with the construction of this thrice damned trade route. If Watsuna doesn't was seriously interested in road through the mountains, then sister of the Hokage for a long time would send the impudent men to hell. Problem solved. The guy boasted, settling more comfortably on floor in the girl's only room. How? With Temari exclaimed with involuntary admiration. How did you manage to force them to fulfill the conditions? Everything is very simple, blurred into. The Master of Shadows smiled with satisfaction and fell silent, peering at the eyes of the Hokage sister. Well? Pushed impatiently she. This is diplomacy, with the guy explained with a grin, and my incredible charm. Temari gasped such an answer, but then she pouted. Not do you want to talk? Asked gloomily she. Not want, seriously, but with Shikamaru replied with a smile. That v next time it won't will give you a ride. Well, and get out of here too in that case. The girl was offended, pushing the guy off pillows. Hey! Indignant that. How or thanks for help. Should I take up fan? The Hokage sister flashed her eyes threateningly. Not necessary, Shikamaru hastily raised his hands. Let me just use your bathroom. What? Temari was taken aback, stopping cursing. I have to go home soon, the guy explained. A house with I don't have a separate bathroom allocated. Well, let me wash. You feel sorry for that, is it? You'll go dirty. Put her hands on side girl. Nothing with not you will happen in a couple of days. Then I'll hug you, Shikamaru promised offendedly. What? Stared at him Temari. I'll hug you and you will become dirty too, the guy repeated mockingly. Or you by I'll smear it on the wall. Poked at finger him sister Hokage. And never you'll find out that I said this to the mountaineers. The Konoha strategist narrowed his eyes. And by the way, they are in this case there is no way will be completed. You! The girl got really angry, grabbing her your weapon. Well fine, the guy raised his hands again. Not that's how I am dirty. I just don't. I want to spend the last hour in the ruler's society. Temari continued to hold on threateningly folded fan. Let me sit by you. Looked at her Shikamaru. That this Izanagi got me into drives melancholy with his thoughts about primacy in family and country. Stupid louts. Temari instantly turned her rage to Highlanders. This advisor of his, Sitao, hinted that he did not against keeping me company, she muttered through her teeth, not yet choked on air. In general, I went to wash, Shikamaru muttered barely audibly, seeping into bathroom. It's good that now the problem is with Sitao has already been decided, he thought contentedly to myself, turning on the water. While Shikamaru splashed in soul, in their door there was a knock on the house. Cooled down, Temari opened and stared angrily at smiling guest. Them turned out to be Sitao. Highlander, and this time there is no way to demonstrate your excessive attention. On the contrary, he bowed his head respectfully and asked, Tell your husband that he is expected at House of Negotiations. What? The girl took a step back. We appreciate the peace treaty with Konoha and Sinnoh, therefore we want to offer profitable cooperation on supply of wool, medicinal herbs and some hard-to-reach poisons from plants that only grow on us. Before he leaves, let him definitely come in and we'll discuss this proposal. Not it will just come in and fly in. With Temari promised with a wry smile, turning dangerously towards closed door and bathroom. The water had just stopped flowing there, so the Hokage's sister didn't begin to rush inside immediately, and waited for her guest to leave with open arms. That eat with fan out in hands. Shikamaru smiled contentedly, tying his hair in a high tail. He easy and simply solved most of the problems. He resumed construction of the road through the mountains, raised his authority in eyes of Temari, discouraged from her annoying mountain fans some advantages from this trip. That's now the Master of Shadows was going to spend a little time in company of girls and go home. The airwave somehow was part of his plans. Shikamaru barely had time to stagger back, falling painfully onto back seat and looking at Temari rolls her eyes. Behind his back knocked down the door and broke the mirrors, tearing them off. There are few decorations on the walls. Ah, so diplomacy? With fierce shine in the girl recalled in her eyes, taking a step forward. Not get excited, Temari! Shikamaru exclaimed, crawling back at maximum speed until leaned his back against wall. So, incredible charm? Gaara's formidable sister. She slammed her folded fan between the guy's legs, making him hiccup in fear and smear across wall. Yourself. Temari, Temari! Listen! The unfortunate man jabbered, trying to would on move a millimeter away unpleasant neighborhood with girl's weapon. I did it for the common good. The kunoichi wordlessly pressed lightly on fan, silencing its victim, for it presses into there was nowhere to go to the wall. After a minute of tense silence, Temari finally spoke in a dangerously calm voice. Since I so suddenly she became a wife, then, apparently, so or I suddenly become a widow. From bout of happiness. Shikamaru swallowed convulsively, saying neither sound so as not to provoke a new outburst of anger. Although no, the girl continued mockingly, squinting, it seems by law I have the right to half of your property? The heir to the Nara clan blinked in surprise, but again he remained silent. So it's easy for you now, you'll get off, Temari grinned, leaning straight towards the guy's face. He even forgot to breathe, no knowing what else to expect from wayward Sand Princess. And the girl with undisguised mockery dropped the hair tie, pulled it on your own wrist and came out of home, leaving Shikamaru to look at her in confusion. Back. He not yet. I soon decided to get up, here or irritably throwing back his getting in the way hair, and grinned. And another plan had already begun to take shape in his head. Conquering the beauty from hidden sand. Sakura was hanging her things in closet, thinking that would still transport from your apartment here. She does not return to yourself, continuing to live with sensei. It was more convenient. Suddenly a sound was heard as if someone jumped into room through the window. The girl perked up and hurriedly came out to meet her. Kakashi! He's back! And a moment later I was taken aback by of his barely contained joy. She, what, were you bored? So much for did you miss him? Sakura, the man called tensely, and when that appeared before him, with breathed a sigh of relief. It's good that you houses. What's wrong you? Worriedly rushed to the girl looks at him, noticing bloody footprints under the open vest. Small scratch, Kakashi grinned wryly, settling down on the floor next to sofa. The kunoichi pursed her lips indignantly, beginning the treatment, while the man, wincing, carefully took off his bloody clothes. You or there was a diplomatic mission? Sakura muttered, with relief to notice that there was only one wound and really not too serious. How are you managed to get involved in the battle? There are several dissatisfied with Konoha's policies and my future assignment, and in particular, Kakashi explained calmly, throwing his head back sofa. He tried very hard not to stain the floor or upholstery with blood. Missed a blow. The girl remained silent, finishing to herself that without the Sharingan it still became more difficult for him to fight. Still, moving her glowing palms over the healing wound, Sakura thought that she really not his presence was enough. Thank you, the man quietly thanked, gently touching her with his palm cheeks. The girl threw up his eyes and smiled sadly. It seems I missed you too. Kakashi abruptly removed his hand and stood up carefully as if he had read its thoughts. He threw on half a hiking backpack, picked up from fresh towel and disappeared into bathroom. Sakura picked up her soiled clothes and headed there to remove blood stains, but stopped in time, taught by bitter experience. And the water was rustling in my soul, and means and don't go there any time soon should have been. The girl looked around the room with a bored look, trying to find something to do the next 20 minutes, and accidentally saw Jiraiya's book half falling out of Kakashi's backpack. There was nothing to do anyway, and Sakura sighed and lifted the sore masterpiece and I read the first sentence. I choked, blushed, shoved the book away. But then she blushed even deeper and listened to the sounds of flowing water bathroom and took the perverted hermit's masterpiece again. Now she fully understood how perverted it was. Do you think there are people who truly love to put things in their mouths? Kitsune snorted at her student sitting on semi. To whom or like choking and choke? Of course, you can learn to do this with least unpleasant sensations, but before they definitely won't end will disappear. But because you talked, Nikoti hesitantly folded her plump lips into a tube, her indignation the chest began to rise more often, opening in the deep neckline is even more charming. They said they loved doing it. I love, Kitsune licked her lips. But not do. I love a man's reaction when I do this. The woman bowed her head slightly. Her eyes became misty. She was clearly now remembering her man, with who don't I've seen each other for over a month now. And probably not I'll never see you again if not a miracle will happen. Nikoti sadly lowered her eyelashes, not knowing how to return the mentor to a good mood, although she had one idea. I love his noisy breaths. Kitsune smiled meaningfully at her memories. I love it when he holds his breath and he's tense. He's all tense fingertips on legs and before clenched teeth. I love his long exhalations on the verge of groaning. I love it when he begins to move towards, almost unconsciously losing control over yourself, over your body. Nikoti exhaled enthusiastically, looking at Mentor with sparkling eyes. She crawled closer and stroked Kitsune's knee, attracting her attention. Look at any man and imagine him in your own hands. Kitsune ran her fingers along girl's cheek. Here he is so strong and proud, completely submissive to you, begging you not stop, ready to everything for your touch, for this can be tolerated with minor inconvenience. Nikoti exhaled again, pressing her chest to woman's feet, but for what or look at a man? I just want to look at you. Sakura hurriedly closed the book and threw it away, because it described something even more indecent than what she had just read. To her, and it was difficult to digest. Here from Kakashi came out of the bath while drying my hair with a towel. He naturally sensed that Sakura was about to bath, and hastened to give in to her place. The girl stared at him, blushing uncontrollably. You shouldn't have read that stupid book. It is forbidden. Because right now she's not could stop and tried to imagine what I read. And these lines, as luck would have it, were perfectly remembered and stood before my eyes. Sakura squeaked something unintelligible and, picking up dirty clothes, disappeared behind door. Kakashi followed the girl with a look full of surprised incomprehension. When the calm Sakura washed everything and hung it up, it turned out that the former sensei was in charge of kitchen, not waiting for her return. Apparently he was hungry and was in a hurry to recover from his injury. Thank you for preparing, he thanked, and back again book. Kakashi always read in time food. Sakura carefully sat down next to her. Remembering the contents of his favorite book, she turned slightly pink and looked away, but managed to take myself into hands after all. On her former sensei is not watched, too busy with what was happening in novel. For some reason this fact scratched the girl. It was as if she wanted to be more interesting than the book. Sakura managed to have lunch, but I miss you companies for days of loneliness, so I just sat next to him, twirling in cup with palms cooled tea. Sensei, there were girls before you me? Suddenly asked thoughtfully she. Kakashi choked and coughed, but Sakura finally captured the man's undivided attention. Jiraiya's notorious masterpiece was shelved for edge of the table. Why do you ask? The jounin asked in a slightly hoarse voice. Well, his former student looked away. I'm just wondering why you before still not married? He confusedly ran his palm over neck. The way of the ninja is somehow not conducive to weddings, family, and other things, just because? Looked at him carefully girl's eyes. Not at all, Kakashi grinned, regaining his usual confidence and calmness. First there was a war, then I served in ANBU, somehow not enough time to have serious and long-term relationships. To that, or there was no, it is customary to become attached to someone so much, so as not to have weaknesses, so as not to bring pain to in the event of one's own death. Sakura said thoughtfully, continuing to look searchingly at former sensei. Then they appeared you, and there is no time grab catastrophically, the man grinned. Well, then there's war again. And now you become Hokage, and there's no time left, the girl finished sadly. Silence reigned in the kitchen. So why are you ask? Kakashi asked quietly. Not I know, Sakura answered honestly, with looking away with a sigh. It just seemed wrong that either with who not you are linking your fate. The girl realized that she had gone too far in my thoughts, so I decided to dilute them jokingly. Well, and I wanted to know where you are learned to kiss like that. She reached out to pick it up, table empty plate, and only then did I realize how ambiguous it sounded words. Sakura glanced up at former sensei. He looked strangely at answer. Leaning down, the girl was too close, but he and not I thought about pulling away. Fingers up, pain squeezed the edge of the forgotten plate. Do you have with what to compare? With the man asked with slight mockery. On the back from these words gave me goosebumps. By no, was Sakura answered challengingly, secretly hoping that he now it's her again kiss. For comparison. Sasuke is far away and unknown, going whether come back at all. That kiss on there let the wedding was forced, but still turned out great. Not know that she was going to meet with someone other than an Uchiha. When he will return, they will definitely catch up with all those days that were on distance. Just love, and I wanted warmth right now, but not the possible future. Kakashi doesn't moved, which was expected, and the girl sighed in disappointment, straightening up. I need to wash the dishes. But then the man suddenly leaned forward and caught her lips in awkward kiss. Sakura, herself from not myself waiting, she answered. No longer just like in last times, because she wanted these touches. Closer, even closer. The plate clanged, breaking, and they both stepped back, looking at each other in surprise. Friend. Sorry, Kakashi was the first to find the words. His former student touched her lips with her fingers in disbelief. As if she was checking whether she really kissed him? It happens, the man answered gloomily. Unspoken question. People live together, communicate closely, that's it. There is attraction. Sakura nodded, thinking that if such an attraction between them arose over some 2 months, then what or will be in year. At the same time, she was ashamed that she had simply betrayed her love for Sasuke. And she doesn't understood why she was it that easy to do. I need to submit a report to the Hokage, Kakashi said, walking into hallway, and then he frowned and, no looking at girl, promised, this is no longer will happen again. Closing for him the door, Sakura returned to kitchen. There were fragments on the floor. Dishes are hitting fortunately. Student 5 wandered aimlessly around the streets of Konoha, trying to understand myself and your desires bursting out into the open. Her conscience tormented towards both, and Kakashi, and Sasuke. And what to do with what happened, she had no idea. Sakura. Suddenly it came to girls. She turned around and saw Shikamaru hurrying towards from her village gate. Something happened? Sakura looked at her very shabby friend with concern, expecting to see he has wounds that require immediate treatment, but he just waved it off. Your parents were attacked. What? The girl recoiled. Dad, Mom? Ino with the JG were returning from missions and saw how they robbed. Not maybe. The Kunoichi gasped, remembering that Kakashi also attacked. Is it really one of these criminals? Found out about them wedding with future 6th and so took revenge on him through his wife's relatives? Were they alive? Quicker! If in hospital, then we must run, save, treat. Shior Tsunade-sama's best student. She doesn't will allow them die. They're in office at 5th, nodded at Hokage Tower. Shikamaru. Sakura lost her temper places. Rushing was so fast that everything blurred before my eyes. Use chakra. Even more. I don't care what the road is, walls of houses which she climbed will begin to crack. Quicker. Bursting in office, the girl staggered and near fell. Kakashi, who is in residence, managed to catch her under the elbow and not allowed to fall. As she doesn't even, I was able to nod gratefully to him. Sakura's parents looked at in surprised daughter. I brought out of building the remaining 4, Cheiji's report continued. We with Ino them tied up and delivered to the guard's gate. But here is part of the goods that he was carrying. Sale of Haruno-san was irretrievably damaged. Sakura breathed a sigh of relief, Everything was fine, okay. None suffered. A losses, it's not fatal. You will be reimbursed for losses from Konoha funds, Tsunade decided. Caught criminals will work off their debt with their labor good for the village. Ino and Choji looked at each other, rejoicing at their successful intervention. Behind them, Kakashi nodded encouragingly to his former student. Sakura's parents looked happy. The girls smiled at the mentors and led them to exit, but here in the Hokage's residence was entered by a familiar mountaineer from countries of the rising peaks. Sakura shuddered when she recognized one of the Isanadze's close associates he saw off the Konoha ambassadors. I think his name was Tsutao. Our ruler asks to fulfill the terms of the peace treaty, the man exclaimed loudly, attracting yourself the attention of others. What conditions? Tsunade frowned slightly, suspecting that the demands of the mountaineers were not simple formalities. Will end. Miyako-chan, granddaughter of Isanagi-san, needs a medic. The ambassador bowed his head slightly. Why, her rare blood disease, with which only a trained ironing can handle. We will give you, began 5, glad that everything turned out to be wrong so scary, but her interrupted. Miyako asked that you release to her your student. The Highlander ingratiatingly bowed his head. Sakura? Tsunade clarified gloomily, catching the alarmed look of the girl trying to push her out of office of their relatives. But those who heard her name, as luck would have it, they became stubborn and stayed to listen. Yes, the ambassador smiled broadly and mercilessly finished off, Hatake Kakashi's wife. Sakura closed her eyes in defeat.